Me.
Ooh.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Barbell Medicine YouTube channel. We're gonna go to Auckland, but back in time. So as you guys know, in February, we did this whole South Pacific tour. Tom Campitelli and I went to Auckland, went to Sydney, went to Melbourne, and we did some seminars, and we did a bunch of Q&A stuff, and some sightseeing. So anyway, this is going to be like a mashup of mostly Q&A stuff with some vlogging and some lifting in there, and of course, Tropical House. So this is part 1 from Auckland. Hope you guys dig it. Certainly people who have chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia or similar diseases on that spectrum tend to report higher incidences of joint pain at large. In fact, one of the diagnostic criteria of fibromyalgia is pain at a certain number, I think it's 8 out of 11 known areas, and one of them is the lower back. But so if you're asking, is there increased rate or incidence of pain in folks with chronic fatigue syndrome? Yes. If we're talking about low back pain. Reasons why people have low back pain. 1, they're sedentary. 2, overweight. 3, female. 4, if
Females have more incidence of lower back pain
Yes.
than men?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I know. Today I learned. I feel like Reading Rainbow needs to play now.
Yeah.
Cue the Reading Rainbow thing. No. And then if you're depressed, if you are a smoker, and if you're physically inactive. I think I might have said that already.
I think so.
Yeah. So all those things.
Depression can be a factor.
Absolutely. Yeah, and depression is also linked with chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, stuff like that. So to use one of my own terms, back pain is nuanced. Seldom is back pain a mechanical cause, like purely, right? Now, look, if you were kicked by a kangaroo and you have a fracture of a vertebra, well, sure, that can cause pain. If you were hit by a car, right, and you have an acute herniation that you didn't have before and it's massive or whatever, yeah, it can cause pain right then. However, the worse the herniation, the more likely it is to resolve on its own within the next 6 months, legitimately on an MRI. So you have an extruded disc. The jelly has squirted out of the disc. Oh no! 6 months later, the worse it is, the more likely it is to have healed on its own. Yeah. So, pain is seldom a reason to not train. You may have to change training, however.
You may have had an acute insult that you did with beach sprinting. Like it's a novel stress, and
Yeah.
I mean it's true that pain is all in our heads, but I mean there are structural reasons for pain sometimes.
Sure.
So you may have done something that beat up your back, but really, like, if you got better in 6 months, like more or less, and they had you doing something kind of useless, what happens is that you just healed. Like, and then you got tired of being in pain, and then you stopped being in pain too. You'll generally find that properly dosed stress with squatting and deadlifting helps back pain. And the sooner you can do it, essentially, like when you have an injury, in the immediate aftermath, you rest a little bit, but literally in most cases, within days, you're trying to provide it as much work as it can tolerate to force it to heal.
Best thing you can do with back pain is move immediately. The worst thing you can do is not move and be scared, right? I get it that look, every time I've tweaked my back, particularly ones that have lasted a while, I'm always freaked out. I'm like, this is the one, I'm gonna be paralyzed. I know when I wake up, I won't be able to walk. No, but the best thing you do is stay calm, move early and often, and most of the time that involves getting back under a bar. Typically, improperly dosed stress from new stuff that you haven't done that overdoes it results in pain. Just because, again, your body doesn't know how to handle it. Yeah, similarly, it could be the same stress you've always dealt with. Let's say it was not a novel stress, but acutely you're stressed by other stuff. Girl left you, baby koala died, I don't know, whatever. And so
I think that's Australia.
whatever, man, we're in the same place. No, what I'm getting at is that a series of, or work stress, a lot of emotional stress or environmental stress can cause fatigue that you've previously tolerated to be intolerable. Yeah. So yeah, DMSO is transdermal vehicle for delivering different types of medications. I personally have not used DMSO for anything. That being said, for musculoskeletal pain, oh man, I forgot. There's a scoring system that we use to show like the percent of reduction within an hour of treatment and like how well that compares, like how many people you need to treat to get that. So it's called a number needed to treat. I forget what this criteria is called, but in any event, topical diclofenac, which is an NSAID, it's like Voltaren, I would use that 10 out of 10 times over anything DMSO. Because one, there's nothing that you can apply via DMSO that's going to heal the tendonitis.
It's not the DMSO itself.
Right, that's the vehicle. But what I'm saying, there's nothing that you can like mix into it that's going to heal the tendonitis. Taking collagen protein has some evidence that it decreases pain scores for people with tendinopathies. Again, I don't know. But I would do, if I needed a topical actual like pain reliever, it would be a Voltaren, like a topical NSAID, as long as you can tolerate those and your doctor says okay. So make sure you ask your physician before starting or stopping any new medications. Collagen protein would be okay, but there are no other supplements or topicals that I would apply besides capsaicin. Yeah, well, so capsaicin is interesting. That's the stuff in hot peppers. It gives it heat. It depletes a chemical called substance P. Substance P is a neurotransmitter that modifies how sensitive pain receptors are to pain. So if you deplete substance P from the area, you get less response to pain. Side effects of capsaicin would be getting it in places you don't want it to be. Yeah. So that's a risk. But in any event, if it was me, capsaicin, Voltaren, or that topical NSAID, and then potentially collagen protein, and then plus or minus eccentric specific training to get over it. If it's a pain reliever, it's to treat the pain. The collagen stuff, I mean, nobody's doing biopsy studies before and after to show like this thing helps with remodeling, but again, that goes back to the structure pain sort of discussion we've had for all this stuff, right? In that even if you have a really jacked up looking tendon or ligament, that doesn't necessarily mean you have pain from it. And just because you have a perfect looking tendon or ligament doesn't mean you won't have pain. Yeah. So last thing I'll say is you may read some popular internet sources that things that alter inflammatory sort of signaling, like if you take Tylenol or ibuprofen, you have a tendon issue that you're just slowing down healing, which is not the case. This has been studied very, very well, and it's not the case at all. So I would, that's a litmus test of intelligence. Someone says that, you're like, I liked you too, dang. You have to get somebody else. All right, you feel adequately, all right.
Jordan and I diverge slightly on this, but in most cases, if you are training correctly, and especially if what you're doing is not exhausting you to the level, like if you are doing a 5 RM and then trying to again do another 5 RM, that's going to be very difficult, and it will increase your rest times. There are people that need to be in better shape in order to train with weights. If they are training correctly, most of the time that will produce a sufficient conditioning response to allow them to train with weights. However, for some individuals, especially people that are very detrained, maybe they need to do a little bit of work, and once again, in the vast majority of cases, people that are actually training and actually doing their warm-ups and training appropriately will not experience this. It will produce the necessary conditioning to lift weights. Now, if your question is should you do some cardiovascular training? As an intermediate, yeah, probably. It's probably a little bit of benefit to you. But is it going to make you stronger? Probably not. In most cases, there are people for whom they actually probably need to do some conditioning more than others. It depends. Let's see. Jordan will probably disagree.
Well, no, I think it depends is a fine answer. So we'll break this down just a little bit. All right, we're back in action. So if you are a novice lifter, here are the following people that probably need to do cardio just in general. One, if they're obese, right, as measured by a 40-inch waist as a male, a 37-inch waist as a female, I pretty much always just routinely start them, because what they've done is that's one of the cardiometabolic risk factors that has sort of ruled them into saying your risk of developing something bad is high, and we can change it if we get the right sort of input. So at that point I say, maybe getting stronger isn't the most important thing in your life right now. I want you to get stronger, I want you to train, but to the degree that a small amount of conditioning would attenuate the response or decrease the response, I'm okay with, because I know they need to lose weight. Same thing if their cholesterol is crazy off the charts, if they have high blood pressure, if they have diabetes, if they have metabolic syndrome or anything like that. Or even if I preemptively got some labs on them that show that they have insulin resistance. In any event, any sort of those cardiometabolic disorders, I would say we should probably do some cardio. And I don't think that it would have a detrimental impact to their strength results in a year's time. In 2 or 3 months' time, okay, yeah, maybe there's a significant difference, but in a year, that's for people who need to do the cardio. If you are an underweight male who wants to do cardio because you are afraid that you may gain too much body fat while gaining weight, I would not do cardio. In the novice situation, the novice thing's gonna last 3 to 4 months, that's it. After that, yes, you probably do need cardio to the degree that you want to maintain your existing aerobic base, right? So in general, you can get a pretty good response from training, and that will make you better able to recover from training. Some folks will not get that, that's what Tom alluded to, and they're gonna need to do some cardio. Other folks do not have any aerobic base because they were previously sedentary, and so they would benefit from doing some pure conditioning to elevate their ability to recover from training that they're not otherwise being developed from training. The last group of people who need to do conditioning, for sure, are people who compete in conditioning-based sports. So the worst thing you could have somebody do who is an endurance-based competitor who actually competes for real is say, stop doing that sport while you train. It's not worth it. Because again, the sports have very specific skills and efficiency things that you're effectively just detraining for months at a time, which doesn't seem like a good trade-off. It doesn't mean they won't do, if it's a competitive cyclist, for instance, I don't want them to stop cycling. They might just cycle less such that they can actually train productively, but they're not gonna, their training, pure strength development is not the same priority as a person who wants to be an Olympic lifter or power lifter, right? And then finally, do power lifters need to do cardio at all? And sure, if they're obese, have cardiometabolic risk factor, or if they're don't have a big enough aerobic base to deal with the amount of training they need to get better, right? So kind of like your question, right? At some point, you're gonna need so much training to get stronger. And that may require a higher amount of aerobic base that you should have developed earlier on, but you may have not, right? So that's one of the benefits of being active early in life and staying very, very active, is that you already have this huge base of training built. Some folks don't have that, right? Which leads me to this next thing. Well, if you had two people, right, they're twins, One twin played varsity sports in high school, then went on to college and played, high-level sports, but never weight trained, right? The second twin did no sports ever. They were math team. And then they both got into the novice linear progression at the same time. Who is able to go further on the novice linear progression before a reset is needed or some change is needed? The athlete?
And by that you mean who will lift the most absolute weight?
Correct.
Not who will improve the largest.
Right, correct. Who's gonna lift more weight at the end of 3 months? The athlete. This previous base of stuff that's generalized and unrelated allows them to start from a higher level and deal with the stress. They've been trained effectively, even if it's informal and generalized. So in any event, it makes a case for early and varied and often sort of activity. Did I answer your question? All right.
And I have one quick anecdote. I have a woman who I train who's a master's competitor in the IPF at the international level. And I've recently had her do some stationary biking as cardiovascular training. For things that are entirely unrelated to her performance under the bar. I don't have her doing a ton of it, but one, she has continued to get stronger. Two, she actually likes it a little better because she enjoys actually having a slightly higher level of cardiovascular fitness. It may or may not help her recover between sets, but it hasn't hurt her. So the idea that, if you do some cardio, you're gonna die, and it's just not gonna happen, it's gonna completely destroy your strength. That's not true. And that's especially the case after, in the intermediate stages. You're able to better recover from stresses, and provided you're smart about sifting it in, you can do some cardio.
Yep. Data pretty much says as long as the cardio sessions don't last longer than 30 minutes at a time and aren't greater in number than 3 times per week, there's effectively no effect on strength, provided the person is not a complete rank novice. Also for health outcomes, if you can generate 8 metabolic equivalents, which is effectively being able to walk up 4 flights of stairs without getting completely winded, out of breath, then you have the requisite amount of cardio that you need in order to not die a premature death. Well,
that is what we're concerned about.
There you go, internet. Yeah, well, it's true. Yeah. That's a surgical clearance question. Can you walk up flights of stairs without getting out of breath? And they say no, and you're like, PT. All right. Here's the thing. If we weren't going to go try to train there potentially at some point, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. You need to have squat racks at a gym. You need to have racks at a gym. You can't, monoliths are terrible. No one cares. All right, anyway. I would just do the paused variations. So pause squat over the pin squat. You could do a box squat if you like, but I think that's just extra gear. So my default recommendation is paused variations. So for the pin bench press, I would do pause. If it's a pin press, I would pause the press above your head. Yep, it's fun. The most I think I've done 253 paused. It's my best single at 8 on a paused overhead press. So 100 and whatever that is, 115 kilos. It's the worst. That's the worst thing I've ever done. Anyway, so good luck. Good luck.
Yeah, do you have access to another gym with squat racks?
Yeah. So
Consider it. Or get them to sell one of their monoliths and then buy 2 squat racks.
Well, that's the thing. So you buy monoliths, what, $1,000, $2,000?
A monolith is generally several thousand.
Yeah, and then a Rogue R3 is $400.
700 or 800.
Yeah, the small ones cheaper, but yeah.
The R3s.
$700.
Yeah, roughly. I think
okay.
Maybe 600 or 700. They're not cheap.
All right.
A monolift has hydraulics in it.
Pass.
Yeah, and a monolift is usually I think they start generally $2,000 or $3,000, and they wobble. They don't actually feel good to squat out of. They're only good if you don't want to walk it out.
I like when people fail squats in a monolift, but then the front isn't weighted down, and then it flips.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
They toss it onto the straps.
Yeah. I feel bad for the person.
It's not good for anything.
Alternatively, when the bar hits the straps, then it starts to swing. So the person's at the bottom, having just failed a squat, like, badness. And then the bar swings and hits them in the back. Well, anyway.
Oh, yeah.
So this morning I pulled 595 for a set of 6, and then some other Oh, man, I'll have to bleep all that out. Then we just went on a hike. I think I'm good for our trip. I don't need to train anymore. But we made it with NMDs too. Look, this should have been the shot for the actual shoe ad. Like black sand, great hiking shoes.
Come on, Jordan.
Luckily, the sound doesn't carry behind us. How old are you? 26, and what do you weigh? 85, and you're how tall, how many centimeters? Yeah. So, yeah. It doesn't mean it has to be done overnight. Yeah, but, 100 kilos is going to look good on you. So. No. Not GOMAD. Not GOMAD. So GOMAD would be if you weighed 70 kilos. Yeah, and so think about it like this. So people who shouldn't do GOMAD, who are not underweight, like, very, very thin, who are not young males, okay, and people who have any amount of body fat that is accumulated over the years, right? So again, the candidate for GOMAD is very underweight, young, male, with minimal body fat. Teens, early 20s, like fresh out of college and athletic background. That would be the candidate for GOMAD. I mean, a gallon of milk is like 2,500 calories or something like that. Which 3 liters is, yeah. So there's what, 3.47 liters of milk in liters in a gallon?
I thought it's a little bit
3.87?
It's a little bit more than 4 liters to the gallon.
No, it's definitely not.
Is it 3.76?
Yeah.
I always thought it was 4.
Well, I knew it was 3. Anyway, so the point is, if that's the way for you to hit your calorie goal, cool.
We're going to find out.
Yeah, it's either 3.46, 3.74, 3.78. So you want to coach your dad because you're the only person he's got in the area who could coach him, but you're also his son. And so, yeah. So because we're in New Zealand and there are no starting strength coaches within thousands of miles, you have no choice. You must accept this. If you lived in a major U.S. city where there were multiple starting strength coaches within you could throw a dead cat and hit one, then that's where you would refer. Or another coach who you've personally had good experience with. So you answer your own question. Yeah, you don't have a choice. And I think that it will help you become a better lifter as well. And you'll find new ways to answer your own questions. Because he'll ask something and you might be like, I don't know, which is the most important thing that you can say in that situation. If there's something that you don't know, say, I don't know. Don't bullshit your dad. Right? If it's a girl, it's fine. But not your dad. No, sorry.
To Jordan's point, like, it's not like we emerged fully formed as experienced coaches,
well,
right?
I am Calais.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. I've been coaching a while now, and I remember I took pictures of some of my trainees squatting way back early on. And I look at them now and I'm thinking, what the hell was I doing? Like, look at those positioning problems. And back then I thought I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
No one died. And it wasn't dangerous. I mean, they were still doing something close to correct, but I would fix it now. So it is true that not everyone is destined to be a great coach, and not everyone can see the stuff. But we're fairly resistant organisms, right? Somehow our ancestors managed to do what they needed to do to get us here. If he's squatting with non-ideal mechanics because you're not coaching him correctly, he might be just fine. And further, you do have online resources. You can also get some input on it too.
Yeah, but you've been to a seminar. You've had more coaching contact hours with people who know what they're doing than anybody else in your country. You have no choice. Yeah. Neurofibromatosis is one of many rare diseases, actually, that Austin and I get asked all the time, like, hey, got this client who with like some really weird thing, and we're, can they train? I'm like, well, I don't know anything else about this patient other than this one random thing. I don't even know what their medical history is. I don't know what their meds they're on, if any. The general recommendation is this, which actually applies here. If somebody has a relationship with a cardiologist or thoracic surgeon or vascular surgeon, you must get their clearance to train first. That's just if they have clearance to train, then everybody goes to the starting strength linear progression or something similar to that without exception until you find a reason for them to have an exception. So for instance, let's say I walked in your gym, right? You don't know me from anybody, and you're like, do you have any medical history? And I say no, and you say, okay. And then you weigh me or whatever else your initial process is, you take me to the squat. I squat just fine. At that point, you have no reason for me to not squat unless something changes, right? And we go to press overhead, and I go to press, and I can't get the bar overhead. And you try, and you're like, this doesn't look good, and I don't feel comfortable doing this. And at that point, you say, you know what? We're going to do something else instead of press. I didn't tell you anything from the jump that would lead you to believe that I can't press. We tried it anyway. It just didn't work. So for that particular condition, there is such a heterogeneity in how it presents, meaning it's different for each person who has it. There are no guidelines other than they can do everything until proven otherwise. That's pretty much most disease states in general, provided there is a clearance from a physician when needed. So the ACSM, which is the American College of Sports Medicine, I think there's an Australian, like one that's similar that I think also provides guidelines for this. If someone has a heart issue, a kidney issue, a brain issue, okay, like actual, have had a stroke or something like that, or a metabolic issue like diabetes, then they have to have physician clearance that it's okay to train. But once you have the okay to train, they can do everything until proven otherwise. But that's the same thing that you would go through normally. You say, I assume that you can squat, bench, deadlift, press until you show me you can't. Which means you wouldn't screen for it beforehand other than have them do the thing, right?
We didn't have you do any warm-up exercises today. We didn't do a functional movement screen. We didn't run. We didn't bike. We didn't stretch. Gently doing the movement is a wonderful, very specific warm-up for the movement.
No, I don't know that. I just assumed, look, dude, here's what I assume. Pangea splits off, all right? And somehow some kangaroos end up with what is now New Zealand, all right? And they probably hooked up with each other for a long time, and probably little kangaroos now exist. Do you think that's the craziest thing I've ever said?
No. Especially not considering your previous knowledge of the geography of New Zealand.
That's also true. That's fine. Look, if someone told you that there were kangaroos on New Zealand, you would say, that seems reasonable.
Having not looked into it closely, I don't think there were actually kangaroos in New Zealand, though. I thought that was an Australian thing.
Do you think that there are Tasmanian devils in Tasmania?
At some point, probably.
That's what I'm saying. It's not the weirdest thing that could happen.
Well, that's because it's called Tasmanian devil.
Yeah, whatever.